Welcome to the Pardis channel. Today, we explain Genesis chapter 3 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Now, this isn't just some ancient myth. This is the chapter that, for better or worse, explains how everything changed for humanity. It's all about the first time a human being chose their own way over God's. And honestly, the fallout from that one choice is something we are all still dealing with. To really feel the weight of this, let's just back up for a second and remember where we left off in chapter 2. You've got Adam and Eve in Eden, which is literally paradise. Their relationship with God and with each other is totally open, completely pure. I mean, the text makes a point of saying they're naked and they feel absolutely zero shame. That's a picture of perfect innocence. So their world is total freedom, with just one single, solitary rule. Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So you've got this perfect world, total freedom, and one rule. What could possibly go wrong?
So here's how we're going to walk through the story. We're going to start with the temptation itself. Then we'll look at the choice that was made. After that, we'll dive into the pretty intense confrontation that follows. We'll break down the consequences, cover the final expulsion from the garden, and then we'll wrap it all up with a few key lessons we can take away from all this. All right, let's jump in. The story kicks off immediately with the arrival of a brand new character. Right into this peaceful, perfect garden slithers the serpent. And with just one simple question, it's about to start a conversation that will literally change the course of human history. Now, the very first thing the Bible tells us about this serpent is that it was more subtle or crafty than any other creature. Let that sink in for a second. Before we hear it speak, before we know anything else, we're told it's smart. And not just animal smart, we're talking clever, cunning, intelligent in a sly kind of way. The text is basically waving a giant red flag at us right from the start. This isn't just a talking animal, this is a master of deception, and its greatest weapon is its mind. And the serpent puts that crafty mind to work right away. It doesn't come out swinging with an order or a demand. No, it starts with a question. Did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden? I mean, that is just such a brilliant, deceptive move. It's a complete exaggeration of what God said. God had been incredibly generous, and the serpent twists it to sound like he's this cosmic killjoy. It's not a real question. It's a seed of doubt, designed to make God look like a restrictive tyrant. So the woman tries to correct the serpent, but her answer is, well, it's really revealing. It shows that that little seed of doubt is already starting to sprout. She says God told them not to eat from it or even touch it. But hold on a minute. God never said anything about not touching it. She adds her own rule on top of God's command. Now, why would she do that? Maybe she's just trying to be extra careful, or maybe in her mind, that one simple boundary is already starting to feel like a huge burden. Either way, she's actually helping the serpent's case by making God seem even stricter than he is. The serpent sees its opening. It sees she's wavering, and it goes in for the kill with this devastating three-part attack. First, a direct denial of God's word. You won't die. It's basically calling God a liar, straight up. Second, it attacks God's motive. God knows that when you eat this, your eyes will be opened. Now it's painting God as being selfish and insecure, like he's afraid of a little competition. And third, it makes the ultimate promise. You'll be like God. And there it is. That's the core of the temptation. It's a direct appeal to pride, to ambition. The serpent offers them a shortcut to godhood, and all they have to do is trust it instead of their creator. And that brings us to the moment of truth, the choice. The serpent has laid out its argument, full of lies and half-truths. Now the woman has to decide. Is she going to trust the one who made her, or is she going to trust her own judgment and the slick words of the serpent? Verse 6 gives us this incredible little window into her thought process. It's like we see her rationalizing the whole thing in real time. She looks at the fruit and basically makes a little checklist. 1, it looks like it would be good to eat. That's a physical appeal. 2, it's beautiful to look at. That's an aesthetic appeal. And 3, it's desirable for gaining wisdom. That's the appeal to her ambition. Do you notice what's missing from her list? God's command. It's just gone. She's now running on her own logic, her own desires. And when she's justified it to herself, she takes it and she eats. But don't miss the next few words, because this detail is absolutely crucial. The text says she gave the fruit to her husband with her. Now, what does that mean? It means Adam wasn't off picking flowers on the other side of Eden. He was right there. He heard the whole conversation with the serpent. He watched her deliberate. And when she turned and offered him the fruit, he just took it. No debate. No protest. He wasn't really deceived in the same way. He just went along with it. It was a passive but fully conscious choice. This was a team effort. Well, the serpent did promise their eyes would be opened, and in a way, he was right. They were opened, but they weren't open to some new godlike power. They were open to their own nakedness. And this wasn't just them noticing they didn't have clothes on. This was a deep spiritual crisis. In that single moment, their innocence was completely shattered. That perfect, open relationship they had with God and each other was just gone, replaced by this sudden, crushing wave of shame and vulnerability and fear. And what's their first reaction to this horrible new feeling? They invent something. The very first human invention wasn't a wheel or a tool to build a house. It was a covering to hide their shame. They sewed fig leaves together. Think about that. They're facing a profound spiritual problem, a broken relationship with God, and their first instinct is to try and fix it with a physical solution. It's like putting a Band-Aid on an internal injury. It's just never going to be enough. So the choice is made, and the consequences hit immediately. The whole vibe of the garden just changes. God shows up for his usual walk, but instead of that open fellowship they used to have, the air is just thick with fear. And the story shifts from temptation to a very tense confrontation. The sound of God walking in the garden, a sound that must have brought them so much joy before, is now the most terrifying sound in the world, so they hide. And then God asks this question that has to be one of the most heartbreaking questions in the whole Bible. Where are you? Now, obviously God knows where they are physically. He's not playing hide and seek. This is a relational question. He's asking, Adam, what happened to you? Where have you gone? Why is there suddenly this chasm between us? It's the sound of a father looking for his children who are now lost to him. And Adam's answer, oh, it is so revealing. At first, he's sort of honest. He says, I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. Okay, but the second God presses him on whether he ate the fruit, the excuses just pour out. He says, the woman, the one you gave me, she gave me the fruit and I ate it. Did you catch that? It's a double blame shift. He points the finger squarely at the woman, and then he subtly points it right back at God for giving him the woman in the first place. There is zero personal responsibility here. So God turns to the woman. And what do you think she does? She follows Adam's example perfectly. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. The buck gets passed again. And just like that, you see the very first human community completely fracture. It becomes a chain of blame. Adam blames the woman and God. The woman blames the serpent. Not a single person is willing to just stand up and say, you know what, I messed up. It was my fault. Okay, so since no one is owning their actions, God has to step in and basically assign the consequences. And notice, he addresses them in the reverse order of how they blamed each other, starting with the source of the deception, the serpent. And it's so important to see these aren't just random punishments. They are the direct, natural outcomes of the choices that were just made. The serpent gets cursed first, and it's cursed the hardest. Physically, it's brought low. It's condemned to crawl on its belly and eat dust, which in the ancient world was a symbol of total defeat and humiliation. But the real core of the curse is a spiritual one. God declares there will now be enmity, this deep, ongoing hostility between the serpent and the woman, and between his offspring and hers. This one verse sets the stage for a cosmic conflict that is going to play out through the rest of the Bible. It's a war between the forces of deception and the descendants of Eve. Next, God turns to the woman, and the consequences for her strike right at the core of her identity and her most precious relationships. Childbirth, this incredible process of bringing life into the world, will now be filled with pain. And her relationship with her husband, which was designed to be a beautiful, equal partnership, is now going to be fractured by a complicated dynamic of conflict and struggle. Everything that was supposed to be good and simple is now going to be hard. And finally, God addresses Adam. Because Adam listened to his wife instead of God, the very ground that he was supposed to take care of is now cursed. It's going to fight back against him, producing thorns and thistles. His work, which was once this joyful act of creation and purpose, will now be painful toil, hard labor and sweat. And then comes the ultimate consequence. God delivers on his original warning. He reminds Adam that he was made from dust, and now he will return to dust. Death has officially entered the human story. So the sentences have all been delivered. And this leads to the final tragic act of the chapter, the expulsion. Their spiritual separation from God now becomes a physical one. They have to leave home. But right before they're forced to leave, there's this really surprising glimmer of hope. I mean, think about this. Adam has just been told that he's going to die. And what does he do? He turns to his wife and names her Eve,
which in Hebrew means life giver, because he says she will be the mother of all the living. That is a staggering act of faith. In the face of a death sentence, Adam chooses to believe in God's promise that life is going to continue. It's a small moment, but it's incredibly powerful. And then God does something incredibly tender. He looks at their flimsy little fig leaf outfits, knows they won't last, and he himself makes them real clothes out of animal skins. Even as he's judging them, he's also caring for them. It's this beautiful picture of mercy. But there's a really deep reality here too. For Adam and Eve to be covered, something had to die. This is the very first time we see blood being shed to cover sin. And that is a powerful idea that we are going to see echo all the way through the rest of the story. And then, the final act. God says that now that humans know good and evil, he can't let them eat from the tree of life and live forever in this broken, sinful state. So he banishes them. Verse 24 leaves us with this unforgettable, somber image. God drives them out of the garden, and then he stations these powerful angelic beings, these cherubim, and a flaming, spinning sword to block the way back. The door to paradise is officially closed. The separation is now complete. So, after all that, what are the big takeaways? Well, first and foremost, our actions have real, lasting consequences. We also learned that temptation is rarely a straight-up lie. It's usually a clever twist of the truth designed to make us doubt what we know is right. We see that deep-seated human instinct to shift blame, to point the finger at anyone but ourselves. But we also see a God who is both just and merciful, who carries out the consequences but also provides a covering. Ultimately, this chapter sets the stage for everything to come. It's the beginning of humanity's long struggle in a broken world, and God's even longer plan to one day make a way for us to come back home. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.